Brother Pawb, good morning and welcome to this morning's meeting of the Finance and Resources Overview and Scrutiny Committee. I'm Matt Georgiou, the Head of Law and Governance. The reason why I'm opening the meeting is because unfortunately the Chair is unable to be with us this morning. So without further ado, I'm going to move swiftly on to the first item on the agenda, which is the appointment of the Vice Chair, and then the Vice Chair will be able to introduce the meeting more fully. So do I have any nominations for Vice Chair? Councillor Hannah.
Can I nominate Chris Hughes, please? He's done an excellent job so far.
Do I have a second? Councillor Gareth. Any other nominations? No other nominations, so we can go to the vote on Councillor Chris Hughes. Everybody voted? Everybody's voted, so if we can close the vote, please. And that's been carried unanimously. So, Councillor Chris, if you can please come and take the chair.
Adnoddau pawb, cynghorydd Chris Hughes rydw i. Thank you for your support this morning and for the recognition for reappointing me as the Vice Chair of the Finance and Scrutiny Committee. Before I go into the agenda, it's members will be aware it's the anniversary of 7/7 this year, and I've been asked if we could observe a minute's silence in memory of all those that lost their lives. Thank you. The meeting this morning will be live streamed and recorded and will be available for viewing after the meeting. Should the live stream fail, the meeting will continue and a recording will be available through the Council's website. Following the conclusion of the meeting, can I remind members that translation facilities are available, and if you want to make use of this facility, please select the English language option on the microphone delegate unit. If you are in the council chamber, and for those attending remotely, by clicking on the audio settings tab and selecting English. For those wishing to speak, please press your microphone push to speak button, which is located at the bottom of the microphone console. Similarly, for those attending remotely, please press the push to speak tab. Your names will appear in a queue, and I will take speakers in turn and as I consider appropriate. Do not use the yellow hand function. This should only be used if you want to come in with a point of order. Can I ask that committee members put their mics on first, and once all committee members have had the opportunity to speak, then non-committee members will be invited to put on their mics. In order to maintain your place in the speaker queue when asking a question, please leave your microphone on until you have received a response and asked any supplementary questions. As we get used to the new conference system, it's worth noting that if your microphone is red, you are an active speaker, but should wait until I invite you to speak. Those in the queue may appear green at first, but will change to red as you move up the queue. For those attending remotely, please note that those in the chamber will be unable to use the chat facility. Remote attendees, if you do need to leave the meeting temporarily, pop a message in the chat function so that Democratic Services Officer is aware, and then let us know when you return. I expect everyone present and participating in this meeting to conduct themselves appropriately and be respectful to each other. That applies to members, officers, members of the press, or the public. Item 1. Right, first item we've already done, so that was the election of Vice Chair. So item 2, apologies for absence.
Apologies have been received from Councillor Cheryl Carlisle and Councillor Louise Emery.
And item 3, declarations of interest. No. Okay, urgent matters. I'm not aware of any urgent matters. No. And minutes of the last meeting held on the 12th of May 2025 are here on pages 4 to 9. Can I ask for a proposer and a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Wynne and Councillor Nia. Can we please show a show of hands to approve those minutes? Yep, that's carried. Item 6, minutes of the informal meeting of Overview and Scrutiny Committee Chairs and Vice Chairs. And can I ask for a proposer and seconder to note the minutes, please? Thank you. Wynne and Nia again. Sorry, Councillor Aaron. Why am I calling you Wynne? Diolch, Councillor Aaron. Can we have a show of hands, please, to note the minutes? That's carried, thank you. And item 7, minutes of the Conway Opportunities Board on pages 17 and 18. Again, can I ask for a proposer and seconded to note the minutes, please? Councillor Gareth and Councillor Nia. And can we all show to... Yep, that's carried. Again. Item 8, questions to Cabinet members. I have none. We have none? No. Okay, item 9, to appoint a representative from the Finance and Resources Scrutiny Committee, Scrutiny and Overview Committee to sit on the Affordable Housing and Housing Quality Adaptations and Acquisition Project Board. Do we have a nomination? Councillor Hannah?
Am I allowed to nominate myself?
Yes.
I'd
Do we have a second of Councillor
be
Hannah?
happy to do that.
Yes. Many. Thanks. Right. And can we all show to confirm that vote? That's carried. Right. Item 10. It indicates that we have a representative for the Finance and Resources Overview and Scrutiny Committee to sit on the Strategic Board. However, I'm advised that that appointment is for the Cabinet member to make, not for the committee. Councillor Julie, did you want to come in? Is she here?
Yes, it's a cabinet member working group, so I will talk. I think it's after Gareth has stepped down from that group, so I will talk to group leaders and look to appoint somebody new in his place.
Yeah. Thanks, Councillor Julie. So, move on to item 11A, the corporate performance and self-assessment. The report will be introduced by Councillor Chris Cater, Cabinet Member for Audit Policy and Performance, and will be presented by Yola McGregor, Performance and Engagement Manager. For the report is on pages 19 to 51.
Thank you and congratulations, Councillor Chris, on your reappointment as Vice Chair. So this report and self-assessment provides an end-of-year analysis of our key performance objectives, which are set out as corporate plan priorities and also our governance areas. The progress and performance against key measures and targets is supported by evidence and is clearly set out for scrutinisation today. We have a statutory duty to do this, and approval has already been obtained last week from the Governance and Audit Committee and also from the Corporate Joint Consultative Committee with our trade unions, which Councillor Cheryl and I both attended last week. Elected members will remember that we approved our revised corporate plan in February this year, and this is the first performance report based on it. Generally, I have to say, it is reassuring to note so many actions as being on track and that financial resilience has been prioritised. So I want to thank Yolo, sitting on my left, and his small team for compiling this big piece of work and bringing it before us so promptly, and also for the focus of streamlining while monitoring and maintaining assurance. So I hand over to Yolo. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Cater. So yes, good morning, Pawb, bore da. Members will be familiar with this report by now. It is a 6-monthly report that I bring to committee. However, this end-of-year report has some additionality to it. So Appendix 1 is hopefully a helpful summary that reflects on performance not just from the last 6 months, but from the whole year. Appendix 3 is also a new addition this time, where we've brought in external regulatory compliance. Previously, that was a separate report, but we were finding there were a lot of overlaps between that report and actually the content of the corporate plan's performance framework. So it was sensible to streamline those both together. It was a useful exercise going through Appendix 3 because we discovered that, actually we were trailing 25 audits behind us as an authority with over 60 actions, which is not a very sustainable position. So we've given that a really good hard look to see, to be a bit more stringent really about what actions we agree we need to continue with and to provide more succinct updates as well. We had a good discussion around Appendix 3, I have to say, at the Governance and Audit Committee last week, and following committee feedback, we have enhanced the update provided against the actions concerning the governance arrangements with Betsy and our relationship there.
So the purpose of bringing the report to FROSC is for members, of course, to have an opportunity to give input to the report, but above all, it's a tool to help inform your forward work programme. It opens the door to further scrutiny. The report also, as Councillor Cater said, represents a couple of milestones. It is the first report to be structured around the new corporate plan, the revised corporate plan, I should say. So we've brought forward now, hopefully, a more enhanced performance framework in support of the plan. But I would say it's only the start of the journey. We have further enhancements that we want to make to it, not least around user perspective information. So we'll be launching an engagement survey, a stakeholder engagement survey, hopefully soon during this summer. And data from that will also be included within the framework going forward. The second milestone is around our efforts to bring forward our reporting timescales. This report previously would have come to committee sort of October time. We're now bringing it to you through committees in June and July. And likewise, the mid-year report that would have come in March, that will come earlier now in November, December time. So just to give a few quick highlights, as I said, it is structured now around the 5 goals in the corporate plan. So the first is around the resilience of the council. Obviously, the corporate plan puts that first and foremost as a point of focus for us. So this report is reflecting on the fact that we have refocused the corporate plan, and there is a very clear concentration now on financial resilience. The report also notes that within the year we've approved our resilience plan and put in place key spend controls and other measures. There does, however, continue to be challenges for us around future financial pressures and our resilience, of course, on government funding. Under the environment, again, the report notes that we've continued to do significant work in support of flood alleviation, biodiversity support and recycling initiatives. We retained our Level 5 Green Dragon Environmental Standard certification for the 10th consecutive year. However, there continues to be challenges around our ambition to be net carbon zero by 2030, which is dependent on available funding. And yes, the continued need for investment for all decarbonisation projects. Our third goal around prosperity and learning, we continue to attract, I should say, significant amounts of external funding for regeneration, arts, heritage and business support. We've continued to make progress in education and skills provision, including progress with some school mergers and facility improvements. And we provide vital employment support to youth engagement work, such as through our career events and the work of our employment service and youth services. There does, of course, continue to be challenges with school attendance and behaviour. And we have a dependence, again, on external funding for new facilities and ongoing education provision. Goal 4, housing. Again, we've noted in the report progress in delivering on affordable housing and reducing homelessness. With affordable housing in particular, we know that there's a great deal coming in the pipeline. And we have a new commissioning plan as well to shift investment to early intervention and prevention work with regards to homelessness. However, there persists to be high demand for both housing and homelessness services, and there's a need for us to focus within our new housing strategy on a holistic approach to both housing and homelessness. And then the fifth goal, again, we've highlighted key projects there that we've implemented around the improvement of care provision for both children and adults, continued efforts to foster community cohesion and safer communities. But there are remaining challenges, of course, around increasing care needs and the cost of care, and the impact of the cost of living remains with us, as does ongoing crime and antisocial behaviour pressures. So that was the quick canter of the corporate plan. To preempt members' questions on two specific areas, I just wanted to speak briefly about our safeguarding measure, which I know members have questioned previously. The data at the moment as we present it is not giving an encouraging picture. However, I do not want us to leave this room with the impression that there are concerns around the provision of safeguarding training. Our suspicions at the moment is, well, more than a suspicion, I think we're at the point of confirming really the measure that we have here is not working as it should. It's composed of several elements. To address, first of all, education. Again, I want to stress that there's probably no part of the council that receives greater education training than school staff. There are at least 4 safeguarding modules that school staff undertake, and our suspicion is that only one of those is being picked up within the current measure. Another aspect of it is to do with the fact that schools are removed from the automated systems that we have corporately. So there's a great deal of manual inputting required, so spreadsheets that need to be filled and then input of that data. And you've got to couple that as well with the fact that schools are on a different timetable. So obviously the academic year running from September to September creates a disconnect with our own financial year reporting, and school staff will undertake their training on dedicated training days, which may not happen until later in the term. So there's certainly a disconnect there. We're also seeing an issue, we think, with casual staff. Our suspicion is that, well, staff who join through an agency, they should have undertaken safeguarding training through their agency. Again, we don't think that our measure is picking up on that data. And then finally, an area that we think needs improvement is legitimately around perhaps frontline staff, operational frontline staff that have not been given the time to prioritise this training. It was discussed a couple of weeks ago now in the Corporate Safeguarding Board, and the message remains very clear from the board there that managers need to be prioritising this training for staff. So that message has not changed. Nonetheless, by now I've come to realise the inadequacies of the measure, so we're working with officers to either fix it or replace it. The other area I just wanted to preempt member questions on was around some of the reds highlighted under the wellbeing goal, predominantly measures around social care. There's a lot of reds there. However, I must draw attention to the targets that have been set. The majority of those reds are because the target is set at 100%. And, you know, I think that's to the credit of the authority that it has taken not only an ambitious stance, but perhaps the right stance that anything below 100% in terms of performance for social care measures is not acceptable. However, the downside of that is if you manage to achieve 99%, it's an automatic red. Other than that, I just wanted to note my sincere thanks to my team and to officers who have contributed to the report. Hopefully members will find it useful, and I look forward to the debate. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, do we have any questions from members? Members of the committee? Councillor Gareth.
Yeah, thanks for the clear explanation on the safeguarding data. You know, my personal preference is if it's so far off the mark, I think it should be excluded from this altogether, because I'm just thinking if the worst thing happens and there is an issue with safeguarding, then the first thing people will turn to will be our self-assessment, and they'll pick up the red. Whereas if the data is incorrect, we'd be better off not having anything there and a clear explanation that the data has been worked on. Because I think you've given a proper explanation and some reassurance to us that you're on top of it and we're working on it and we need to get there sooner rather than later. But I'm just thinking of how does it look to an outside person looking in when they see the red on there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gareth, and I would agree, to be honest. And I was having a conversation with the Strategic Director just last week on the measure, and I said we could exclude it, but equally that might be perceived as us trying to hide something. So the logic behind leaving it in this time is that I could come here with a full explanation, and certainly we will fix it or replace it by next time.
Diolch. Right. Councillor Paul. Councillor Paul, and then Councillor Aaron.
Do I just speak now, Chair?
Yep. Go ahead.
Thanks, Yolo, for your presentation, and I do think this format is an improvement, and I particularly like the sort of signposting through the year, some of the decision making that we've been taking. So thank you for your work on that. I think for me, there is data evidence in here for most of our areas of performance, and that's important, the data evidence. But of course, the data evidence still doesn't capture the reality for our residents. So if we look, for example, at housing, where we are making progress and gradual progress, that's a positive. But I'm very conscious, if I was somebody who's becoming homeless in emergency accommodation, I've been in temporary accommodation for a long period. The fact that some people are moving out of emergency accommodation, even though they may have been there for many weeks or months, or some people have been in temporary housing for many years, that still doesn't really capture that reality. It shows that we are making progress, we're chipping away at things, but it doesn't fully acknowledge that reality for those particular people. And for me, in my 3 years as a councillor, I think the housing issues we face are very profound. Most weeks, I get a contact from a resident about their housing problem, and that to me is something I think going forward, as Yolo was saying, I think that is an area where we need to do further scrutiny going forward. The other area, and again Yolo did mention it, crime and antisocial behaviour, that's another area where I think we need further scrutiny going forward. I'm not necessarily very popular for continually questioning the cabinet member on this or senior officers. The biggest criticism or damning report we had during my 3 years was for Youth Justice Services. Now, I am constantly reassured we've got governance of that. We're on top of governance now. We are making progress, and children and their parents are engaged with professional officers. But there is, again, this sort of difficulty about the data. We're not allowed close data on this because of confidentiality issues. We at the management board, which most councillors obviously are not on, that data and case studies are discussed. Again, in relation to the joint board, we're going to scrutinise that next February again. So all of that is in one way positive, and I acknowledge that. But then residents and I witness locally, for example, an example of it would be children trading drugs, other substances, gas, vapes on the street. And in a sense, that information that we have in this report or whatever doesn't capture that reality and doesn't capture those residents' concerns, whether they are children, parents, or just parents living with this issue. And so I would again argue that we need further scrutiny on this going forward. And I would like to pose that question on those two areas, housing and well, for me, it's a safeguarding issue for children. Children are involved in crime and antisocial behaviour. We as a community are not safeguarding and protecting them well enough. So I'd be interested to hear of Yolo and other officers' plans going forward to ensure we can reassure the community we've got a grip of this and we're taking further actions. Thank you.
You want to come back, Yola?
Thank you, Councillor Paul. To be fair, I think you've reached the correct conclusion of your own questions from my perspective, in that these are two topics that you feel require further scrutiny. I don't know if any other officers behind me or around me want to come in particularly on the points that you've raised, but I would agree that those are two worthy subjects to take forward.
Oh, Katie. Sorry, I couldn't see you back there.
Thanks, Councillor Paul, for that. And I know it's really hard, isn't it? And I think it's important when you're talking about how you choose those high-level indicators. It really does hide some of the information underneath. And we've obviously looked at the average length of stay in temporary accommodation. An average length of stay across a number of households will hide some of those issues and the experience of people. So this year we have carried out a lot of work to try and understand that. So we've launched at the beginning of this year a homeless engagement exercise where the team have been out and had face-to-face discussions with over 140 households experiencing homelessness living in temporary accommodation. So we are now compiling a big set of data around understanding what people believe might have helped earlier on, what their experience is now and what would help them, and really importantly, what will they think will be really important when they move on into their home. So I do understand that high-level figures, especially I always think it's really hard when myself and Councillor Emily talk about this. When you are making good progress and you want to talk about those good stories, it's not forgetting the experience of those people who do remain in a situation which isn't ideal, and even those who aren't in temporary accommodation but in housing which isn't suitable. So we try and find that balance, but I wanted to reassure that beneath the sort of high level figures we are trying to understand the experience and shape our services around those residents' views. We have had a really good outcome on our leased scheme. We have dropped to a very, very low number of households now that you're talking about a long stay in accommodation. The average length of stay is reducing. And I know the bed and breakfast average length has increased. And I think, again, I wanted to just clarify, it is in the report, that there is an issue of demographic there because we are housing less families in bed and breakfast. The majority of people are single households, and that is our most challenging group to move on. We've talked lots in this committee about the challenge of single accommodation. We are tackling that, we're doing all we can, but I guess that length of stay increase reflects the fact that in general, our families are starting to move through a lot faster than they had previously. I hope that helps. And in terms of the additional scrutiny, obviously the more full report, we have one due to this committee later in the year as well, which will give some of that understanding beneath those high level figures.
Thank you, Katie. I think, Paul, that I've been one of the biggest critics of housing over recent administrations. It's not, but I have to say, being a member of the Housing Board, there have been significant changes over the last 2 to 3 years. We are now starting to see properties coming forward, and I think that can only be, the team need to be congratulated. I'd also remind members of the service reviews, which allow us to get into detail about things which we can't always discuss in public forum. And I think that is an opportunity for members to scrutinise in detail some of the issues they're concerned about. Can I bring Steph Robbins in?
Thank you, Councillor Paul. In response, really, again, like Katie, that we're hearing the high-level indicators within this report. However, I just wanted to cite members that we also present data on a monthly, quarterly and annual basis to Welsh Government, CIW, the Annual Youth Justice Plan, the Director's Report, the Community Safety and Partnership Report and the Corporate Safeguarding Annual Action Plan. All can be read, and a majority of those reports are seen through scrutiny. So although this captures the high level, as you can see, the performance indicators that we have to present as Children's Services and Youth Justice are extensive.
Paul, did you want to come back?
No, I'm happy with that.
Okay. Can we move on to Councillor Aaron then? And can you turn your mic off, Paul?
Diolch, dwi'n mynd i ofyn cwestiwn yn Gymraeg sydd hynny'n iawn. I ddechrau ni, diolch am yr adroddiad a diolch am mynd â ni drwyddi. Rhywbeth sydd ddim yn yr adroddiad yma oedd yn yr adroddiad 6 mis yn ôl, oedd y canran o swyddi lle mae o'n benodedig Cymraeg, lle mae rhaid i ni benodi rhywun sydd yn medru siarad Cymraeg. 6 mis yn ôl, y targed ydy 100%, ac oeddwn ni wedi cyrraedd 93%. Dio ddim yn adroddiad yma, ond dwi'n cymryd bod hynny herwydd bod ni'n gwneud hynna'n flynyddol yn lle bob 6 mis. Ond o'n i eisiau gwybod os oedd gennym ni rhyw fath o flas, os oeddwn ni'n cynyddu tuag at y targed o 100%.
Go ahead, Iolo.
Diolch yn iawn. Dwi'n gen y ffigurau diweddara ar gyfer hwnnw. Ond ti'n iawn, mi fydd na adroddiad blynyddol yn dod yn erbyn y strategaeth ar wahân. So felly dyna'r rasional pam dydyn ni ddim wedi cadw hwnna ymlaen o fewn yr adroddiad yma. Ac felly hefyd dyna bydd ddigwyddodd wrth gwrs efo'r cynllun corfforaethol newydd. Ar ni dweud, wel, newn ni reportio hwnna trwy'r strategaeth fydd yn mynd yn blynyddol.
Oes na, pa mor hawdd ydy dod o hyd i'r ffigurau o faint o staff sydd yn y swyddi penodedig Cymraeg, sydd yn medru siarad Cymraeg? Be dwi'n gofyn ydy, os angen i mi ddisgwyl tan mis Ionawr, neu wyt ti'n medru dod o hyd iddo fo mewn?
Na, dim problem. Fedrwn ni neud ymchwilio am hynna ac cael yr data. Dim problem.
Iawn, diolch.
Next speaker is Councillor Anne McCaffrey.
Thanks, Chair. First of all, can I just give my apologies to the committee because I'm unable to switch my camera on due to issues of background problems and flickering. So just to be clear. YOLO, I think today's report is a significant improvement on previous iterations. So I thank you for all the hard work that you've done to deliver the improvement. I particularly like the compliance report in Appendix 3 because it gives real clarity to a really lack of focus perhaps in driving the actions that we were being asked to within the different reports. In terms of today, 3 things jumped out to me. One was safeguarding, and I'm really pleased that you've met that face on. I think for the last 10 years, approximately, if you were to go back in terms of previous meetings, you will find that I will have raised this because it was an issue that was reported. I'm not in favour of taking away the measure. I'm certainly in favour of making sure that it's fit for purpose, but more importantly, that the underlying systems issues are resolved. And I suppose I'm quite concerned to hear that schools yet again are not connected in terms of digitally to the reporting systems. And I think that's an underlying issue across the board that I think we need to fix. Other issue I think we'd like to focus on today is our extremely high level of absence and labour turnover. I mean, there are indicators of concern of staff, perhaps well-being, but also they harm our service delivery and they increase our costs. So I'd be really interested to hear about how we're intending to significantly reduce those going forward. And then the third point I would like to make, again, you've raised it yourself in Appendix 1, and I think you call it user data. And I completely agree that I think we need to be more clear and more frequent and with a bit more detail in terms of the bigger picture of how we're delivering for our citizens. Yesterday evening, I sent Amanda and a couple of others a copy of a public performance scorecard that Edinburgh Council issue on a quarterly basis. It's in plain English, it's across the key measures, and it gives some real sound assurance of what that council is doing and whether it's progressing in different measures, standing still in different measures, or perhaps falling back. So I would really like us to, moving forward, using that potentially as a basis, either to copy, plagiarize, or to think about how can we offer a similar scorecard for our residents, because I think that's really, really important. But I would, out of all the things I've raised, I would like particular feedback from officers on the level of absence and leave in the council.
Go ahead, Yellow.
Thank you, Councillor McCaffrey, and thank you for your compliments of the report, particularly. With regards to the scorecard, I'd be happy if you could send me a copy of that. We can certainly take a look at it. We do, at the moment, have a sort of infographic that we produce for councillors that gives hopefully some highlights of achievements through the year. So we're certainly intending to continue to do that, but we're just doing some work to refine that at the moment. I will hand over to Fran, I think, on the question specifically around absence. I pass over to Fran, I think.
Diolch. Thank you for your question, Councillor Anne. As you know, this is something that as a team we have been working on very hard. We have a small working group looking at absence, and we gave a comprehensive report to informal cabinet just last month. You are correct that in terms of our outturn for year end, it has increased slightly. It is the highest absence outturn that we have had for the last 6 years at 12.68 per full-time equivalent. We've been doing a lot of work with the team and also via Managers Forum. In fact, we dedicated our last Managers Forum to looking at absence. The HRBPs have been doing a deep dive into the reasons for absence, and we have reported that we know the main reason for absence is owing to stress, anxiety and mental health. Probably not the time to go into great detail here, but we have looked into those reasons for stress. They are mainly personal reasons. You'll recall a while back that we reviewed our categories of absence and created a category for bereavement, because it was clear, very sadly, that some of our absence was being recorded as stress, because we didn't have that criteria to identify that it was bereavement leave. We've really re-looked at our advice for staff. So every month we provide an update to managers in terms of the absence reasons, and provide them with advice as to what line managers can do to help members of staff. We've particularly focused on the Conway conversation, the importance of having that regular conversation with team members, and assurance that those reasonable adjustments can be put in place to prevent somebody feeling that they are so unwell that they need to be signed off from work. We've also reviewed the attendance management policy. That's making its way through democracy. I think we've just got moved along a month because agendas are so tight. Specifically looking at the emphasis on support plans for staff, guiding people to toolkits, and making sure that all line managers have a regular refresher on attendance management training. We've been developing some toolkits, so really trying to help staff and line managers as much as possible. And we're issuing those toolkits every month. They're all being uploaded onto the intranet. So specifically looking at that deep dive and trying to understand how can we help people. So we've done one on sleep hygiene. We've got one coming up around tech and phone challenges. We've done one on bereavement. So we've got a whole host of work ongoing to see how we can hopefully support staff to remain in work. So hopefully that's given you an oversight that we are looking at it. Diolch.
Thank you, Fran.
Chair?
Yeah, quickly, Anne, because I'm conscious of time. We are well over our allotted time on this subject at the moment, so go ahead.
Okay, Fran, just can you clarify from a benchmarking point of view, where are we across Wales? Because patently 12.68 is heck of a high by any standards. So I just wondered, where we are in an all Wales situation.
Yes, I don't think the benchmarking is publicly available yet, but we have had it informally. We weren't the worst, we weren't the best. But yeah, there is a common theme across local government in terms of absence increasing and stress being a key factor of that.
And any feedback on labour turnover?
Sorry, I didn't catch what the question was on that. What was your question, Councillor Anne? Has our turnover increased?
The question was that the labour turnover figure, I think it was at just over 10%, is a significantly high figure in the world of work. And obviously, again, losing that level of staff, experience, skills, and probably delay of recruitment, all of those things, again, impact on service delivery for our citizens. So I just wonder, again, where we lie in Wales, and obviously what are we doing to reduce it, because it's quite a high figure.
My latest outturn on turnover is 8.6, so we are within the norm. I'd need to have a chat with you about that. But in terms of our turnover, we're fairly level pegging. What we have been doing, just to give assurance, is we have a recruitment project. We've completed phase 1. We're moving on to phase 2. We have reported on this within the People Strategy Progress Report. We've done a huge amount of work in terms of revamping our brand, making it clear what Conwy has to offer, and massively speeding up our process to approve vacancies, making sure they're appropriately funded, really looking at our approach to adverts. And in recruitment phase 2, we're really looking at accessibility. So modernising the way that we recruit, being more values focused, and specifically working on a project which starts in September with Impact to review how accessible we are for people with a learning disability. So again, I am due to do another update on the people strategy, so I'll provide more information there.
Thanks, Fran.
Councillor Hannah, you were next, but you seem to have disappeared off my list. Did you still want to speak? Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Councillor Chris. So it's a really interesting report, and we are always going to not really look at the green things because we just presume they're okay, and actually it's lovely to see that we have such high standards, and so much of the work that the council does is continual in the green area, despite the high standard we've set. So that's excellent. Thank you for explaining the safeguarding. Having been on quite a few school interviews at the moment, it is something that's raised within the interview process. And you're right, though, there's always training going on in safeguarding in schools, and we just have to look at how we're recording it. But I'm glad you've raised that and explained that. And I appreciate the fact that you're going to look at prioritising training for our frontline staff as well. So I would like to assure people that I do believe they're doing a good job in schools. We just maybe don't know about it as well as we should do. So as well as looking at a few issues, I do have one concern, and that is the secondary school attendance. I know we deliver an excellent education, and so it's a real shame that we have a small group of our older youngsters that are not able to benefit from that. And I know there's a lot of work going on there, but we should never lose sight that is an issue. But I am very pleased to see the increased efforts from, well, not efforts, because the effort was always there, so that's the wrong word to use, the increased success from the employment hub and the number of modern apprenticeships that we ourselves are offering as a council. I think that's a really positive move and a way of letting our younger people benefit from the excellence that's shown here, and then they hopefully will decide to stay. The recycling target, again, over 70%, excellent. Very pleased to see that. I'm very pleased to see that with the homelessness, it's our prevention team that have done really well. And we know that there's a lot of building work going on, so hopefully the other aspects of that is going to soon start to be resolved within the next year or so. But really good that we're managing to engage early and reduce that homelessness, families and people getting into that negative spiral, and we're managing to intervene early and keep them out of that. So thank you very much for the report. It's very easy to read, it's very approachable, it's very understandable, and I'm very proud. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hanna. Yola?
Thank you very much for those kind words as well. That's very much appreciated. Just to address your issue around school attendance, I couldn't put it in this report because the data has not been fully validated yet, but I believe we will be shortly reporting a very improved position.
Thank you. Next, we have Councillor David Carr.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I was going to ask a question about on workforce planning, and I think Councillor Ann covered a lot of it. Well, I would like to go to a bit more detail on the working from home, people remote working. Does that have an effect? And what are the figures for people remote working having sort of absences? What are the rates for that? Because now, I've got concerns about it, because it can affect your mental health when you feel isolated, when you feel as though you're not part of the team. So I think, can we have some figures on that or some comments on that? I'll try and be brief because I know there's a time factor now. On the environment, my main complaints as a councillor are always about ERF, about the streets not being clean, bins not properly being emptied. And really, I know we've made cuts in ERF year on year, but I think we can't sustain that for the environment. To carry on cutting a service that's a frontline service that the residents are really totally opposed to any more cuts in it. I would like sort of some answers on that and how we can improve that. On the care provision, on the new IT, I know we've got funding from the Welsh Government for that, but that's not guaranteed to carry on, not after this year. I don't know, we might get different people in Cardiff when we have the elections next year. I'm not opposed to IT, it's a great tool, but there's too much money going into it and not enough money to frontline care. We need to pay frontline carers more money. We can't attract people to do those jobs, and that really is the problem in care, as I see it, that we can't deliver everything. I mean, there's been a great improvement in the delivery of services, but there's still services that we're not delivering to people that they're entitled to. So, I think we need to put more money into frontline care, spend money on IT, but I'm not very happy about the costs of the IT. And the ITs we've had in the past haven't been that reliable. So really, IT is a useful tool, but maybe not too much money. On the crime, and particularly about Paul was talking about young people, closing community centres, really. And there's the closure of community centres, where I live in Old Colwyn. We need to actually put more money into community centres, because it would actually sort of be cost effective in the future, we need young people places to go, and we haven't got that. So I think the strategy of selling things off and closing things down, and then looking and saying, well, we get an antisocial behaviour from children. We get the antisocial behaviour from children because they haven't got anything to do, and you know, give them somewhere to go, give them a structure, and that would improve it. So they're the comments I've made. So I would like Fran to actually answer the question on remote workers, and if we have some figures for that, and if isolation and separation from the team, is that a factor in people having issues and having absences? Thank you.
Fran, would you like to come in?
I would. Thank you. A really valid question. Thank you, Councillor David. It is something that we have looked into, given it has been quite rightly raised before. First, just to clarify that 60% of our workforce are not office-based. They are out in the community. We have asked our HRBP team to do that deep dive in terms of the reasons for absence, and there is no correlation between hybrid working and the increase in absence owing to stress. What has changed is our working habits. We know that post-COVID, we are increasingly multitasking. We are increasingly working from meeting to meeting. And we have reported to Informal Cabinet a report from Microsoft who have advised that the total time spent in meetings has more than doubled since 2019. Studies show that more time we spend in meetings, the less time we concentrate and the need to multitask. How many in this room have looked at an email whilst they are trying to concentrate on the debate? And our brains are just not set to do that. So switch tasking, back-to-back meetings leads to hyperactivity. For those who have access to their emails on their phones, the ability to switch off declines massively. How many of us sit there watching a Netflix movie whilst answering emails because they are piling in and in? So we have tried to look at this. It's one of the objectives within the resilience strategy, which has been supported both through the corporate plan and cabinet, which is looking at our meeting burden and looking at how we can be more streamlined within our bureaucracy within the authority. What I can assure members is that we know that the reason for absence is mainly personal reasons, and that's what we really want to look at. I want to assure staff who are listening to this debate that this is not about statistics. This is about looking at how we can support your well-being and look at different ways that we can reduce the stress of everyday life. Thank you.
Thanks, Fran. I think one of the biggest concerns that I have is the number of times people hit the reply to all button and you end up with 50, 60 emails that you didn't need, but you've had to check in case you did need it. And it would be really helpful if when people are responding to emails, they do so to the individuals who need to see it. Thank you, Chair. Would you like to come in, Reen?
Yes, please. Bore da pawb. Diolch fawr. Thank you for the question, Councillor David. I just add to what Fran was saying, and from my perspective, it's around having that one-to-one conversations with individual staff members, encouraging and identifying issues before they develop. I think that's incredibly important, and it's something that I personally have been pushing around, trying to get that conversation and reporting that discussion as well, so that we have that whole view of individuals. And as Fran quite rightly says, it's not about statistic, it's about people, isn't it? And that's the culture really that we need. And I think, to be fair, Councillor David has probably hit the nail on the head around how difficult the prioritisation is across different services. It's really challenging, isn't it? You know, we've seen it across numerous budgets now, how difficult it is. You know, each of us has probably our own view of different things that we'd like to prioritise. I would mention that in this year's budget setting, additional resource was put into ERF, and also on top of that, reversed some of the cuts that happened the year before. So in that sense, ultimately, it's for you as members to decide what your priorities are when we're setting a budget, and those budgets are continually being incredibly challenging. On the digital point, I guess
what we need to be very careful about is that we don't miss opportunities to create capacity for staff by utilising digital. The world is moving on. The world is becoming a complex place in many ways, but also there are numerous solutions out there. And what we will find, and you will see when we bring forward our resilience strategy later on in the year, is that we are looking at work streams that are there predominantly to help staff. So hopefully it'll be about releasing capacity by taking away some of the tasks that create the difficulties for staff. There will always be that need for that one-to-one front-facing staff engagement with people. That's what we're here for. So I think we can do both. I think we can work side by side by utilising the best digital solutions out there, and there are loads of them out there that we need to look at, analyse, and get the best for Conwy out of it. So in that sense, I can give the assurance that we are looking at all options across digital solutions to try and utilise and help our staff in the best way possible. So diolch yn fawr.
Diolch, Rhyn. Councillor Sharon Dolman.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to echo comments made about the report, Yellow. It really is exemplary, and it was very easy to follow and to read, and it was interesting as well. So thank you for that. My compliments to the RF team. I know they did have extra budget last year, but they have had numbers of budget cuts, and looking at the results, they have done exceptionally well. The street cleaning, recycling. I know we're one of the top authorities in Wales for recycling. But obviously there's a downside, and the red box, which is the bane of the life of many councillors in rural wards particularly, is fly tipping. And I notice we were in the red and it's got worse. My question is, do we have any, well, I've got two actually, do we have any data around the number of prosecutions we've been able to successfully achieve? And secondly, do we have plans or mitigations in place, A, to deter fly tippers, and B, when there are prosecutions, do we ensure that those are picked up to try and deter others from fly tipping? And the other thing that I don't think is mentioned specifically, which is another bane of the lives of many councillors, is dog fouling issues, which you might say comes under fly tipping, I'm not sure. But if there is some data around the number of prosecutions we've successfully been able to achieve. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor, and again, thank you for your comments on the report. I don't believe, off the top of my head, there is any nationally published data around number of prosecutions, but certainly we will hold data somewhere. So I'll make inquiries and see if we can get that for you. Likewise, on dog fouling, did you want particular figures on that?
Yes, please. It's. I think it would be really good because most of the complaints I get are around dog fouling or the bins not being emptied or whatever. The dog bins and fly tipping. Living in a rural area, we're constantly trying to deter people from fly tipping, because once they fly tip it into a farmer's field, the farmer is then responsible for the removal, and I get the farmers on to me, and it does seem to be an unfair situation when they haven't dumped an old sofa and several Roman blinds from the 1970s and so forth, but they're expected to remove them.
Yeah, okay, no, that's not a problem. We'll look into further figures. I think that there used to be fixed penalty notice data published around dog fouling, but certainly we'll have something around that. So I know my team are listening in, so they'll be frantically.
Okay, thanks, Chair. Thanks, Yellow. I'm conscious we're in almost half an hour over our allotted time, and I've got two speakers. I'm going to bring Councillor Stephen Price in first, and then the last speaker will be The Cabinet Member for Adult Social Services, Cathy Augustine. Stephen.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not a member of this committee, so thank you for allowing me to speak. And thank you, Yola, for the very detailed report that you've given. It's very, very reassuring. Can I just come back to Fran on the absence policy? It was highlighted that stress is one of the main causes for absence. Do we monitor what changes have been made to the individual who's suffering stress or workload stress when they come back to work? Is there any mentoring done in relation to that? And are we in a position where we're relying on the medical profession to fix the problem rather than us fixing the problem ourselves?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Stephen. Yeah, as part of our management and support for staff who advise us that they are unable to work owing to stress, we have a number of different tools, such as a wellbeing plan, and also we can undertake a stress risk assessment with the individual, and that's a very personalised approach, exactly as you've said, of working with them and tailoring support around their specific needs. We also have a whole host of other tools at our disposal. We can, of course, refer them to occupational health to make sure that we are getting the medical advice as to how we can support that individual. We have a whole host of different signposting and toolkits that I mentioned earlier, and a section on our intranet called Conwy Cares. And also we have our employee assistance programme, VivUp, where I stress if it's appropriate to do so, they are able to either access support reading tools or refer to a counselling service. It just very much depends on the individual's needs. We're trying to look at this holistically. We're working with social services and their wellbeing team as to what's on offer there. And also in this month, the staff newsletter, we've got a particular focus on exercise. So we are doing our utmost to support staff, but I should stress we're there to support. And, you know, we are all adults as well. So we're trying to focus on that responsibility, our individual responsibility, to take up these various opportunities available. And that's what we're particularly stressing in this month's staff newsletter around exercise. It's proven that regular exercise is a really good de-stressor. So we're making sure staff are aware of the various Fit Conway offers that are available, and also walking routes in the area. So yeah, a whole host of support for staff. It's just finding what's right for the very personal, individual circumstance of each member of staff.
Thank you. You help okay with that, Stephen? Thank you. Councillor Cathy.
Talking about Chair for bringing me in, and congratulations on your re-election as Vice Chair. Just to clarify, I'm Cabinet Member for Children, Families and Safeguarding, and I just want to acknowledge and respond to some points from Councillor David and Councillor Paul about really the complex and interconnected issues that impact on our young people. And they include, as Councillor David said, absolutely community centres, also youth clubs and play, green spaces, our libraries, our family centres. These are all things that I consider as so important to supporting our children and our families. Thank you also for the explanation about safeguarding. That is really, really important. So, first of all, I really want to respond to Councillor Paul, and I wouldn't want any suggestion that as a cabinet member, who I think you were referring to, Paul, that I avoid your scrutiny. I always try really hard to respond in a meaningful way, either directly or as a team with officers. Any other suggestion I feel would be a little bit unfair and misleading. Secondly, I agree, of course, that these are all safeguarding issues that you raised and that are covered in the report. And I actually agree with you that communities may not be doing enough. There's always a human story behind statistics, but this is why we have to preserve confidentiality. And as you and I have discussed many times, it's a complex jigsaw. Everyone needs to play their part in youth justice. All our agencies working in partnership together with us as elected members. We are all corporate parents. And you yourself, Councillor Paul, know how difficult this can be, having shared at least one instance with me in a meeting where you witnessed a peer-to-peer assault but were unable for any reason to report it. You've shared the reluctance of community members to report issues. Police have responded to you saying that they can't create statistics and actions without hard evidence. So I think you're aware that all of this makes it much more difficult to capture and report on the numbers and give you the assurances you request when evidence is missing or patchy. So I 100% agree with the points that you raise on a regular basis. Namely, it's important to understand these issues, numbers and patterns, but hard to have a full picture when bits of the jigsaw are missing. These are really sensitive, complex areas, and everyone needs to play their part to achieve the reporting that you require in that amount of detail. But hopefully, what Steph responded with earlier with reports and feedback that you can absolutely access will be helpful to you. So I hope that between Steph's response, which is one of a number that you have had recently from us, and my acknowledgement and response here, that will be helpful and reassuring to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Very briefly, Paul.
I'm very conscious of this whole issue of safeguarding at the moment, and my worries about antisocial and criminal behaviour by children on streets is a significant concern in Conway in certain places. And I think the issue I would again raise is, and it came in Baroness Case's audit of group-based child sexual exploitation and abuse. And in that report, which I think did move the whole of the UK forward, some of the problems were caused by professional officers from many agencies not joining up the dots. There was a failure of evidence because many professional officers failed to collect and collate the information. Their intentions were not to prioritise the children's needs for protection and support. And I think Baroness Case's review and intervention is very powerful for us all. And what I want us to is to take that learning from Baroness Casey and apply it across the board where it relates to children. And as I say, criminal behaviour and antisocial behaviour by children is profoundly, for me, a safeguarding issue. And if we haven't the evidence at the moment, and it's very difficult, I'm not disputing that, but I still think, and that's what I want to scrutinise going forward, that we are doing absolutely everything to collect the evidence, collate it, and most importantly, as a consequence, safeguard and support these children who are involved in these activities. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Abdul, can you be really brief? Because we're so far over the agenda. I know people have got to leave, and I'm concerned that we might end up having to adjourn this meeting if we can't keep to time. Thanks, Abdul. Be very brief, please. We can't hear you, Abdul. No. Are you on mute, Abdul? No. I'm sorry. We can't hear you in the chamber. Okay. Alaya, you try again? No. I do apologise, Abdul, but I think we're going to have to move on, unfortunately. So, the recommendations appear in item 2. Do we have any recommendations that somebody would move, or do you just want to? Yep. Right. Thank you, Paul. And is that seconded? Councillor Hannah. Thank you. Can you all show? Oh, how do I activate? Can you please start the vote? Yeah. Can you speak? There you go. Yeah, first time I've had to do that. Okay. And has everyone voted? Yeah. Can you close the vote, please? And that's carried. Thank you. Right, we move on to item 12A, which is the annual report for Conway's project management framework, which is on pages 152 to 210.
Thank you, Chair. I'm introducing this. This review of Conway's programme and project management has considered feedback from the corporate plan workshops, SLT and SMT, and has encompassed the external recommendations coming from the WLGA peer review and also CIPFA. So best practice from other organisations has been evaluated. Our aim is to, as you know, avoid duplication, give clarity and streamline processes. So a definite foundation, and I know you, Councillor Chris, and I agree on this completely, is that we want to ensure that the processes result in elected members being engaged and involved as much as possible and as appropriately as possible. The framework now formally refers to the local area forums, the importance of the protocol on member-officer relations, and the protocol for liaison with local members. A big change is that the dashboard reporting system, which only used to go to the Conway Opportunity Board membership, will be shared with this Finance and Resources Overview and Scrutiny Committee, as well as SLT and informal cabinet. I don't know whether Councillor Anne McCaffrey is still on in the meeting, but I know she requested this some time ago, as it summarises key information on programmes and significant projects. So I'm really pleased that's going to come to this committee. Thanks go to the team, which is basically Emma and Tim on either side of me, and I'll hand over to Emma now, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Chris. Emma?
So many thanks for that, Councillor Cater, and thank you for that as well. And I'm here today with Tim Pritchard, who is the Corporate Programme Manager, to present on our annual review of the Conway's Programme Project Management Framework. So as a team, we do an annual review of the framework, and this year, as part of that review, we took account of external audit feedback, corporate plan workshops, insights from CIPFA, the WLGA peer review, and good practice from other local authorities and public organisations. The main outcome of the review is that we need to simplify our processes and meetings, reduce unnecessary bureaucracy, and be more agile in decision making. So as a result of this, the corporate modernisation team are putting forward changes to make this framework more focused, simpler, and more efficient. So the first thing I'd like to highlight is paragraph 1.3 of this report. The proposed changes in this report will only take effect after formally approved through scrutiny in Cabinet. Therefore, the proposed changes to programme and project board memberships will only solely apply to new programmes or significant projects established from this point forward. Existing programme and significant project boards will remain and retain their current board memberships until they are completed and close. Therefore, just to go through, the main changes being proposed to the framework are that we have a streamlined project board membership, and this is saying that for newly established programme significant project boards, membership will be aligned with key roles as outlined in Prince 2 or managing successful programmes. And these roles are, for example, the project executive, the senior user and senior supplier. Just to highlight for information, a new programme or significant project is only set up around once a year due to the level of resource and capacity required. So this isn't something that, these aren't boards or programme boards or significant project boards that are being set up every 6 months, every 3 months, every quarter. It usually happens once a year, once other significant programmes and projects have been completed. As part of this work, we're also proposing that we set up standard project and programme board agendas to focus on the programme or project-based decisions and progress made against the agreed plan and scope. These smaller memberships of boards and standard agendas are being proposed as the boards could be more efficient in their approach. If we consider the responsibilities of a programme or project board and their memberships, they should focus on directing the programme or project in line with the original scope agreed through democracy. They should approve resources to the project, help resolve issues, proactively monitor risks and ensure stakeholder engagement. They should also ensure that the project is progressing to the agreed plan and only makes decisions related to the controls of a project. So following review, it became clear that in some cases, rather than boards being programme or project board led and questioning the project manager and where there may be concerns, boards were becoming slightly the other way around, where the programme manager is presenting information and updating on the progress and not asking for any decisions to be made. This proposal makes the boards more proactive and agile, and they can be pulled together when required more easily. So in terms of the board membership, in the revised framework, it does not mandate that individual scrutiny members, local members, or member champions be part of board memberships. What the changes do advocate, however, is broader access for all scrutiny members and local members to programmes and projects. At the start of the programme or project, the project brief or programme brief will still come through the democratic process and scrutiny can assess the scope. During the life cycle and in line with other recommendations in this report, as Councillor Kate has stated, a programme and significant project dashboard will be presented to scrutiny and reports can be requested on any programme or project where issues are identified. This will occur on a quarterly basis. This allows all scrutiny members to have a consolidated view of the status of all programmes and significant projects. The end of programme or project report will also be presented through democracy. And also, if at any time during the programme or project life cycle, a decision needs to be made in relation to that programme or project that requires democratic approval, this will be agreed with the chair and presented to scrutiny also. This includes situations where the programme or project scope is recommended to change significantly from the original agreed scope. Programme and project managers already take account of both the protocol on member officer relations and the protocol for liaison with local members. And to that end, the corporate modernisation team will ensure that programme and project management progress is reported to local area forums where required and also involves local members in the programme and project structures where that's appropriate. The other main recommendation of the report is the closure of the Conway Opportunities Board. This was set up in 2019 to monitor the corporate plan, but this has now evolved, and many of those programmes and projects have been completed. The board's role was reviewed, and in order to provide greater oversight to all, we're proposing to take the programme and significant project dashboard through SLT, informal cabinet, and finance and resources overview and scrutiny on a quarterly basis. As noted before, therefore, scrutiny will receive a consolidated overview on all programmes and significant projects and request further reporting as necessary. And that's it from me.
Okay, thank you, Emma. Do we have any questions? Councillor David and Councillor Gareth.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you for the report. It does seem overly bureaucratic to me, and we're talking about informal cabinet, which I understood can't make financial decisions, can it? You know, too much is going in front of informal cabinet. And going back to what Chris was saying about the time factor, we're looking at very detailed reports here. This is a public meeting, and we've been told when we're in an hour and a half into it that we're way behind. If this meeting went on for 4 hours, it would be adequate to be able to discuss all the content. So I'm not really very happy when members are reminded. You know,
sorry, David.
I think we need more scrutiny. So, you know, I'm happy that we are.
Our staff have other things to do as well. They have to agenda their day. You know, they can't be planning just for this meeting and then have the rest of the day free. They have things to do, and therefore we have timings on every subject on your agenda, and you should be aware of that when you come into the meetings. So, you know, we're trying to get through this, and I've not stifled debate. I've allowed people to speak, but the reality is, we have to be fair to our staff. They're entitled in law to a break between the 4th and 5th hour under health and safety. Yeah, do you want that? You know, we can't demand that they work on, and they have to be provided with their statutory breaks. So, you know, if you want to work on, then this meeting will have to adjourn, and we'll have to have that on another day when staff are available. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, can I just come back on that, Chair? I don't think a reasonable person would agree. We're an hour and a half into a meeting, looking at very detailed reports in a public meeting, and councillors are told, well, I mean, we have the system here, we have the cabinet system here, we don't have a committee system here. This is the scrutiny committee. We do need to do proper scrutiny. So, I'm not, if we were going on for over 4 hours, yeah, but when we're an hour and a half into a meeting, then I think...
Chair, the conduct of the meeting, the way that it proceeds, the order of speech and how long the debates go on for is entirely a matter for you as chair. It's within your remit as the chair to make sure that the meeting is properly chaired and runs efficiently and doesn't run over time.
Because
no, you can't. The legal
I'm not
officer
attacking
has
staff.
spoken.
You know, what you said was totally wrong.
David,
I am not attacking staff in any way. I'm just saying that councillors need adequate time to be able to scrutinise detailed reports. That's got nothing to do with wanting staff to stay over break times and that. So what you were saying, I don't believe was right. Thank you.
That's the constitution. We set time limits for the debates. You as members have asked that we do that, and that is done. And, you know, that's the situation.
It's not
I'm moving on to Councillor Aaron Wynne. Oh, sorry, Councillor Gareth, you've dropped off. And then Councillor Wynne.
Yeah, it's only a quickie, really. I have got some concerns about the fact that local members won't be included in the boards, because I think it's really important where there are boards that are dealing with local issues and local projects, that the local members are actually involved and that it's actually part and parcel of the process, because it helps get better buy-in, hopefully helps get better decisions as well. And if the boards are actually making decisions there, then at least if the local members have been able to feed into those decisions, it's a little bit more clear-cut and a bit more democratic, dare I say.
No, I'll just come back on that. Within the report, I think one of the paragraphs does say that there is the ability for the project boards to co-opt the local member onto the project board still. And although it says there's no mandate, there's nothing stopping the project board or the project manager or the project executive inviting the local member to be part of the board. And I would totally agree with that also. And also what I would also say, though, is that any decisions that are being made in the project should just be project control related. If there's a recommendation that needs to come out into a democratic arena or something that needs to be taken about a decision locally, that should just be maybe a recommendation from the project, but it still needs to come through the proper processes. The project boards are there to make decisions around project controls, how the project's being managed. And what I would say to you is that the things that you're saying, maybe they've been discussed at the project, but the decision shouldn't be taken there. But obviously, yes, the local member can be invited to join the project board, should they so wish.
I just think personally, maybe it should be a bit stronger that it's recommended that, serious consideration be given to including local members rather than just give the option, but, you're just using tones of language, really.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, just very quickly, it's a really important point, isn't it? I think with any project, especially a very, very local project, the input of the local member is essential. And I think what this framework allows is, it's very rare that you have a project that's hyper-local, is it? So what this allows is to bring it to the local area forum to have that wider local input into a project, which really hasn't been there before. So I think that's a positive. But also, it may be that a local member would not want to be on every board meeting. It's very busy, councillors, and having that commitment at every board meeting, where maybe some of the issues aren't relevant to that individual member. Bringing a member in for a specific discussion about concerns, it's about that conversation, isn't it, more than anything else? Because when it gets to the democratic process, clearly the role of the local member is ingrained in the constitution, isn't it? So it's about how we get that in. Now, the member offers a protocol is where we should be with this, and it's specifically referred to in the report, isn't it? And for me, it's making sure that works correctly, because I am aware that doesn't always happen, and it's making sure that we elevate that protocol really so that everyone is aware of it, and within the project framework, that really is the Bible that we should be looking at really, and making sure that we have the engagement with local members at the appropriate time and the appropriate way.
Diolch Cadeirydd. Diolch Emma am mynd â ni drwy'r adroddiad. Na jyst ddisgwyl I bobl roi headsets ymlaen. Jyst eisiau dweud dwi'n cytuno hefo'r argymellion yn yr adroddiad. Dwi wedi eistedd ar ambell I project board ati dros y blynyddoedd. Rhai fel aelod o lleol, rhai fel aelod o scrutiny. A weithiau, da ni yn mynd I cyfarfod jyst mwyn cael diweddariad bod na ddim diweddariad. Ac yn anffodus bod na ddim cyfle I bobl wneud penderfyniadau mwyn gyrru'r agenda yn ei flaen. A yn amlwg mae SIPFA wedi deud ni'n do, bod angen I ni fod yn fwy agile beth ni'n gwneud yn penderfyniadau. Felly, mwyn symud pethau yn ei flaen, na I gynnig bod ni yn derbyn yr argymellion yn yr adroddiad a bod ni'n gofyn I Cabinet gymeradwyo 2.2 a 2.3. Diolch.
Diolch, thanks, Councillor Aaron. Councillor Sean Grady and then Councillor Anne McCaffrey.
Thank you. Just quick, very briefly, I have to agree with Councillor Gareth on this about the local member being informed and the recommendation that they're included, because it seems to fall on lots of various boards and meetings that we either come in late or we don't get included. I've been on a couple of different issues, and there's been an argument of whether I can be involved or not, and or whether I have been or not. And I just wanted to add that to the debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. And next is Councillor McCaffrey and then Councillor Lucock. Councillor Ann?
Yeah, obviously you couldn't hear me. I thought you would be able to. I understand the desire to speed up decision making and delivery, and I agree. However, this actual report feels a bit like turkeys voting for Christmas in terms of backbench members, local members potentially being excluded from significant projects and programmes. I mean, there is a concern that backbench members will have no seat at the table, no access to agenda or report packs, and therefore will lose ability to shape direction and ensure citizen needs are best served. Because when things come retrospectively to scrutiny committees, or in this case to local area forums, in actual fact, it's really for nodding approval in most terms, to be honest with you. Having said all of that, I would be happy to support this in terms of the recommendations. I think it's in 2.2 and 3, with a couple of amendments. And I don't know if Aaron would be keen to sort of accept these. One is that members should be able to view the meetings and access the report packs, albeit have no ability to intervene. I think it's important that we all are treated the same, and therefore if we want to engage and have the time to engage by actually overviewing and listening into debates, I think we should actually have that, because these are ordinary members should have the ability to actually see reports and see meetings of this nature, in my view. And then the second sort of caveat would be that this is quite a significant change. And while I'm happy to make it, I actually think we should temporarily make it and actually review it, say in October 2026, in time for the new administration, which will come in 2027, ensuring that we have an effective system that actually doesn't deny members the ability to influence and to make decision making improved from their own perspectives. So just a couple of amendments there to Aaron's recommendation. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Anne. And Councillor Paul?
Yeah, I'd like to build on a couple of those things and then support Aaron's proposal. I think we do need to have a lessons learnt report from this new structure, and it would seem sensible to do that prior to the next electoral cycle. So I think I don't think that's contentious to have a review and lessons learned. I also agree with Anne and Sian and others on the local member issue, but I also think, I personally think, that there should be a backbencher on each board. I think it's important to have that diversity of view, and I'd like to propose that we tighten that up and say that there should be a local member and or a backbencher on each board.
Thank you, Paul. Is that seconded?
Can I just come in to clarify where I think we're up to? So we've got a proposition from Councillor Wynne, which is essentially to recommend onto Cabinet the recommendations within the report, and then Councillor Aaron. I don't know what's happening with calling you Councillor Wynne today. Do excuse me. It's obviously catching, Chair. The proposal then, I think, was a request from Councillor Anne as to whether Councillor Aaron would incorporate those into your proposal or not, and that was twofold. It was that all members should be able to view meetings and access report packs, and the second was to review the framework in October 2026. So I think we'll just test that. If you're content with that, then that can be, and then. From Councillor Paul, it was that a local member and or a backbencher should be on each board, whether or not you're content with that.
I think we've had a discussion about the local member aspect, haven't we? I think with scrutiny, I think Emma mentioned it. Am I still on? In her introduction, that any decision making will come through the democratic process, won't it? So I think at this time I'm going to say no, I don't support that.
In which case, do we have a second first of all for that main motion? We do, Councillor Nia. So in that case, Councillor Paul, do you want to move that as an amendment, and we'll see whether somebody supports the amendment and vote on an amendment?
Thank you for the advice. Yes, I'd like to move the amendment.
Does anybody second the amendment, which is essentially that there is a local member and or a backbencher on each board? Councillor David. Does anybody want to speak on the amendment only? No. Can we then take a vote on the amendment, Chair?
Yeah. Can you?
And that's just to be clear.
Point of order, Chair. Point of order.
Go ahead, Dan.
Move point of order at any time, Chair.
Yeah. On the back of what the monitoring officer has obviously clarified and what Councillor Aaron has clarified, I would actually like my proposal to be that we accept the recommendation 2.2 and 2.3, but to make meetings and report packs available to backbench members, and that we review this new arrangements in October 2026 in time for the new administration.
Chair, I wonder if Councillor Am maybe didn't hear me. That's exactly what the motion is. Councillor Aaron accepted those proposals, so that became the main motion that was seconded. And now Councillor Paul has asked for an amendment to include additionally that a local member and or a backbencher is also included on each board. So we're now at a stage where that's been seconded. There are no speakers on that amendment, so we are voting now just on the amendment. Do members agree that they wish to add that to the main motion?
So can you open the vote, please? Oh, sorry, can you open the vote, please, Berwin? And can you? Has everybody voted? Has everybody voted? Yeah. Okay. Can we close the vote now, please? And that's being carried 8-3. So the substantive motion.
Yeah, so the substantive motion is the recommendations, but also that all members should be able to view meetings and access the report pack, and that the framework is to be reviewed in October 2026, and also that there be a local member and or a backbencher on each board. That's the substantive motion, Chair. So are there any further amendments to that motion?
Don't see any. So can we take the vote?
Shall we just check first, Chair? Is there anybody who hasn't spoken on the main motion that wishes to speak? And if not, we can go to the vote on the.
Councillor Paul.
No, he spoke. Councillor Paul spoken on the main motion.
You turn your mic off, please.
Oh, apologies.
Okay, right. Then we will move to the vote on the substantive motion. Can we close the vote? And that's approved. Thank you. Right, we now need to move on to item 12B, which is the managed service provision for agency and temporary workers. It can be found on pages 211 to 222, and the report will be introduced by Councillor Chris Cater.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it's an introduction from me again, Chair. So Donna Roberts, who's behind me, will take us through the progress made to improve the governance and compliance of agency placements. But I just want to flag up, Chair, the welcome benefit of savings and the significant reduction in administration. We know we're in challenging budgetary times, and if we can fulfil our temporary staffing needs with some efficiencies, then that is all for the good. So I'll hand over to Donna now, Chair.
Thank you for the introduction, Councillor Cater, and thank you, Vice Chair, for the opportunity to present this progress report. So, Pwyllgor, good morning, everybody. In December 2023, Conway launched a managed service provision for temporary and agency workers. This is currently administered by a company called Matrix. The primary objectives were to enhance compliance, improve operational efficiency, and achieve better value for money. I'd like to summarise some of the key achievements I believe we've realised to date since implementation. So firstly, the compliance and assurance. Key improvements in compliance include assurance that our agency worker colleagues are receiving pay and leave entitlements comparable to permanent staff, which is a legislative requirement under the agency worker regulations. We have the ability to monitor changes in cost, for example, the recent changes to national insurance. We're achieving improved IR35 compliance, reducing our exposure to risk and significant HMRC penalties. And we've got access to real-time data. For example, the ability for me to be able to share data, including that as of 9 a.m. this morning, we have three new orders waiting to be approved, 37 timesheets awaiting sign-off, or in the last week, we've had 124 active placements, with the highest number of roles falling within our facilities and environment sector. And we've got a better understanding of the reasons for usage than we've ever had before. We have a robust, I can't even speak this morning, can I? A robust scrutiny and approval process, which mirrors our internal recruitment process. And this builds in through the online platform and the built-in workflows that we've got. Plus, we've got centralised and viewable safer recruitment documentation, such as ID, DBS certification, references, confidentiality agreements, and the first time ever, we're able to understand the equality monitoring data for this valuable people resource. So, are we making progress towards achieving our value for money objective? Yes, we've taken measures to improve value for money. These include standardised fees, which are aligned with the Welsh Government framework, or occasionally where they've been centrally negotiated. These fees are predominantly lower than those before the framework was launched. We have an estimated preventative spend of $420,000 compared to pre-framework fees. And we also have no fees chargeable for agency workers who are transitioning to permanent roles after 12 weeks. And to clarify, no temporary to permanent fees have been charged for any placements via the framework since launch. This was an area of concern for Conway previously, for the old framework and off framework where agencies were trying to charge us significant amounts. For any transition which is sooner than 12 weeks, where a fee may apply, Matrix have supported us to remove that cost by agreeing start dates after those 12 weeks and have not chased the charge. There has been a reduction in administrative overheads with consolidated invoicing and removal of paper processes and direct negotiations by managers. Prior to the framework launching, colleagues within social care worked really hard with ADSS Cymru and other authorities to bring in a ceiling rate of pay for social workers, which I understand has really helped reduce costs within that sector and hopefully also helps in terms of attracting and retaining this specialism. In terms of the overall managed service framework performance, some key highlights I'd like to flag up really is that we've expanded from 9 to over 150 available agencies. We've been able to retain all 9 previously engaged agencies, which were on our old framework. Over 50% of the current placements are with agencies based in the Conway County. A further 10% are from agencies within North Wales. And there is 20% from an agency that was based in Conway but has moved out of the area. We know that for the workers that we've got access to the personal data on, that over 85% of these workers reside within an LL postcode area. So we're still providing local staff opportunities for work. We've provided support through forums in sourcing hard-to-fill roles, such as within social care or within waste, which we've been able to develop and understand national market data or try and help improve how we recruit these roles and attract workers. And also have access to market data for quite specialist roles, such as locum solicitors or engineers. In respect to my general reflections and some feedback received along the way, I've obtained feedback from trade union colleagues, so including those who use the system as managers, and this has been positive, and initial queries that have been resolved successfully, which I think may have been alluded to when I came here last year. These generally are linked to any sort of queries were mainly around communications and support from the agency rather than the actual framework itself. To be completely transparent, as with any system or process, there is no such thing as perfection. Any change or new system or process can be challenging, and for me it's been key to support managers and understand the source of the issues, and to date I believe we've successfully worked through all of those so far. In May we migrated over to a new platform, and this did need some additional time resource, but it provides a simpler system for managers to raise orders. And I want to thank managers and colleagues for their patience and input during that period. So in conclusion, before coming today, I asked myself, are we achieving what we set out to do? Based on the data, my personal involvement from the beginning and the feedback I've received, I believe we are. And we continue to use that data and information to help us gain further, further intel and analysis on this area of spend. And I hope that you all can leave here today with the same confidence that I have in the progress we've made. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Are there any speakers? Councillor Paul.
Can I just refer in the report to paragraph 6.2, where we were identifying under the previous scheme that, if you like, the auditing wasn't necessarily robust. There was no consistent approach to budget coding and categories. So what you're saying now is, with this new system, we are fully on top on a monthly reporting basis of what we're spending and who's spending it and who's signing it off. And you're confident now that our auditing is robust.
Thank you for that, Councillor Paul. Yes, so through the online system, what I can clarify is all orders go through that. We can see real time what the spend is, what the rates of pay are. It links directly through to the timesheeting, and I've got access to report on a daily basis, don't want to if I can help it. But we can do quarterly reports, we can do monthly reports and get that real-time data on where we're spending, the usage, the numbers in different areas, the types of roles, the reason for those, the rationale, and hopefully that can help us in terms of our analysis going forward.
Thank you for that.
Councillor David Cart, then Gareth Jones and Anne McCaffrey.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's quite glaring that 70% of the temporary workers are in the ERF, and that, I don't know how other councils feel, but that is the number one complaint is about ERF services that I get from residents. And the cardboard problem, again, you know, that people are still saying the cardboard's not being collected. And then we had the sort of problem a month or two ago about what the nappies weren't being collected because we hadn't got sufficient. There were staff on holiday and there were staff off sick. So can we actually look at a little bit closer into that? And also, when I had meetings with the management of ERF, they said that 32 workers that are normally employed between April and October weren't employed last year. And that has had an effect on the street cleaning. It's had effects on the parks and other things we do. So really sort of, can't we have full-time staff in ERF? Can we look? I don't know what the problem is. The problem, the pay, that we're not paying enough to, that people are coming into this work and then they're moving on to a better paid jobs. You know, there must be reasons behind it, but I think that is the area that I said I'm getting the most of the complaints, and that is the area that's got the most of the temporary workers. So perhaps some explanation of that. I'd be grateful. Thank you.
Do you want to come back, Donna?
Yes, obviously I know my colleagues from ERF aren't with us today, but I can allude to some of the reasons and rationale behind it because I am the HR business partner for that service. So fortunately I do know a little bit more. Many of the placements are, as you noted, there are seasonal demands. So obviously within our tramways, for example, or our harbours. We also have a high number within our cleansing teams and waste. So there are various reasons for that. One of them, I would imagine, is to ensure that the communities receive the standards that they need. So people will be here on ad hoc to be available to cover when there is sickness, where there is leave. So whilst I talk about the number of placements, it doesn't mean that's the number of people who are physically in every day. They are, for example, in waste, they are inducted so that we know there are skilled workers available to cover shifts as needed. In terms of the rate of pay, obviously the agency workers, as I mentioned earlier, are paid the same as our comparable employed workforce, and we have been successful in recruiting those into permanent roles, which is fantastic. We are also trialling a new way of recruitment. For example, in waste, we have recently gone out to advertise for casual refuse and recycling loaders, which is a different a method for ad hoc and temporary staff that we've not trialled there before. We do have it in other services. So that, again, might show that there may be a slight shift. And also we've had consultations really around, for example, public conveniences. We've got a number of workers there. And so I would imagine that it would be a more sensible approach to rely on temporary workers whilst there's consultations going about the way how we work forward, really, rather than employ people and then have to look at our workforce numbers retrospectively. So I think those are the comments I can probably add. I don't know if they answer all your questions, Councillor Carr.
Thank you for your reply. My concerns are, you know, obviously I don't actually know what the actual rate of pay is, but is the rate of pay able to recruit and retain staff? You know, how long are staff staying in the ERF, particularly on the sort of the cleansing services and some of those type of jobs? That are my concerns. That if there's a constant sort of change in the workforce, then that might be an answer to why I'm getting these complaints, you know, about cardboard not being taken and the other things that I get. So that really is the question. Are we recruiting and retaining staff in ERF, particularly on the cleansing service side? And as I said, that could be something to do with the rate of pay, couldn't it? But yeah, if you could answer that about recruitment and retention, and what the rates are of retaining people when they actually come to work for us full time. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't actually have the data to hand, but it is something I can go away and speak to colleagues in ERF around, if that's of help.
I think it's, unless it's different with agencies, I think it's right to say that the salaried staff is a nationally agreed pay rate.
Yeah, that's correct. So obviously all of the roles within, well, the majority of Conway are job evaluated. So that is the same rate we would pay to someone who we've directly recruited, as well as who we would take on through the agency, to make sure we have that equal pay comparator.
Thank you, Donna. Is Councillor Gareth next? You've moved off my console.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, you know, the overall aim of this, as I understand it, this framework was to save money and make us more efficient. So am I right in thinking that the overall savings is £420,000? And I was just wondering, do we know how many hours it's actually saved in our own staff times with the efficiencies of the framework and things like that? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, in terms of that saving that you've noted there, 420k, that is specific to agency fees. So the fees that are associated with any placements, that's a comparison to if we'd have engaged those workers pre-framework, opposed to how we've currently done it since we've launched in that period, well, the 12-month period that I've reflected over. In terms of staff hours internally through the comparison before and what we've saved, it is difficult to know because we didn't have that data. We can estimate how much time was spent. I can certainly tell you how much of my time has been spent on this, but it will depend on services. So we have a really good team within social care and education where they operate it and do a lot of the so our HR support team there, who do a lot of support for managers to do get the placements on there and coordinate that for them. In ERF, it might be a manager who's doing a lot of that work, or previously they would have been negotiating direct with agencies. So it is difficult to put a figure on it. It's only based on knowledge of those different services and what I knew went on before. And obviously that was a gap of information that we had.
Okay, so I suppose the bottom line is, are the departments, are the services happy with the first service that's delivered? And by the sound of it, if we've saved 420,000 overall, unless there are costs in there that we don't know about, but if we've saved 420,000 that's come off our budgets, that's really good news.
Thank you, Gareth. Councillor Allen, I think, was next, wasn't it? Who was next on there? No. Okay, Councillor Frank.
Thank you, Chair. And congratulations on being elected once again. And I can see the difficulties it has in chairing some of these meetings. I think I'm in the wrong committee. When I listen to complaints about ERF, or maybe we handle things differently in Craigiedawn. But all I can say is, in Craigiedawn, my main complaint or worry is crime. Crime comes from outside the area. But if you want me to speak about ERF, I'm quite prepared to speak about ERF. ERF are remarkable in what they do for the public in Craigiedawn. They go out their way to help the public. They leave a bit of litter, unfortunately, when it's windy. But that is understandable. But I've always found ERF personnel not to be complainant, but to be compliant with the views of the residents, and I'm grateful for that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Frank. Councillor Ann.
Thanks, Chair. Members of the public, I would just like to make clear that this report in front of us is a follow-up progress update about the implementation of our managed service provision for agency and temporary workers. So it's not about ERF's decision-making on sort of workforce and all sorts of other sort of spin-offs. And as far as I'm concerned, on reading the report, I have to say I'm nothing but impressed. I mean, Donna, I congratulate you. I think this is a real success story with a financial saving as an outcome, and I would expect as a much improved sort of service, particularly impressed by the comments within the report that say that we're avoiding paying fees to agencies if we decide to take on agency staff. So there's been quite a lot of work involved in this, and I can see it within the report and the results. So well done. I think so. I'm happy to move the recommendation on 2.1. However, and there's always a however, unfortunately, one of the things that jumped out to me is on page 212, and that's in point 3.5, which says this managed service provision does not include agency or temporary workers directly engaged by schools. And I think I've raised this question before and not really got a sort of a significant answer that makes any sort of change. So what I would actually like, Chair, is to recommend and ask for that we have a report on what the costs are for last year and the first quarter of this year in terms of our schools around the employment of agency and temporary workers, which are directly engaged by schools, because there isn't the support that there is for the other services within the council. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Councillor Hannah.
I don't know, was there a response on the schools required for Councillor Anne? Or?
Did you want to come back? Sorry.
Just only very briefly, but thank you for that, Councillor Anne. I appreciate that. In terms of schools, I do recall us having that conversation, and what is in place for, obviously predominantly it's teaching assistants, really. I think that the highest demand comes from in our schools. The Welsh Government does have a separate framework for that, which they encourage usage of and share with schools. So that's why we've not actively kind of gone back and tried to move away from that for them.
And if I could just come back, Donna, I mean, I think that was the same answer as before, so I understand that. I think the dilemma is, obviously that system is costing a lot of money that could be saved within our schools. And of course, you know, our schools are struggling for money. And obviously we don't have a framework within the council, as you've just described and clarified. So that's why I'm actually asking that we, for this committee, have a report on what the costs are for our schools by recruiting agency and temporary workers in the last year and in the first quarter of this year. I think it's a real important and serious issue, and I think we should scrutinise what the spend is and actually look at if that's value for money, and therefore what we can do or should do, if anything at all. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hannah.
Okay, I'm glad the schools bit was covered, because I realised there was a bigger story to that bit, so thank you for filling us in there, Donna. Gareth talked about the financial saving, which is absolutely brilliant, and actually did touch on it, because what I wanted to say was, what to me, it's not just the finances, these are people, and the fact that we have this ability to pick up on people that come in through an agency or for whatever means and recognise their skills and their talents and their potential for working in Conway, and to be able, without any financial inhibition there, be able to take those people on, nurture them and bring them on and improve our excellent workforce. That's a really positive part of this whole procedure as well. So congratulations for that, and it's a really, really positive report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Oh, Anne, did you want to come back in?
Yeah, I mean, just to be clear, Chris, and thanks for allowing me to come back in, my second point after moving the report is a proposal that we actually have a report to this council on school spend and value for money on spend on agency and temporary staff last year and the first quarter of this year. So just wanted to make that clear that was a proposal. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Anne. So Anne has proposed 2.1 and with an amendment. Councillor Paul.
Just wanted to second Anne's proposal, because I think that amendment, because I think that would be useful to have that information.
Okay. Are there any other proposals?
Can I ask, as a point of clarification, I believe it's up to individual governing bodies to set their own budgets and how they spend their money on staff. Would a report like that would we able to get a report like that? Because it's not really our place, is it?
Does anyone know the answer to that?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. To tell the truth, that was exactly what was in my mind. I guess interested, Councillor, and I can absolutely see. I guess obviously, we're recognising here that we have introduced a system for managing and monitoring agency spend, which has obviously had benefits to us as a council, both in terms of financial savings, but also the management and use of agency. And therefore, I can absolutely see that we would want to look to see how schools can utilise and maximise those opportunities as well. So I get that in and of itself. So, but in the context of us doing a report assessing how schools are currently using agency and whether they're achieving value for money, as a sort of a broad piece in terms of it being interesting, absolutely. But as Councillor Aaron says, if we were to conclude from that actually we believe schools weren't achieving value for money, then I'm not sure to what extent we take that forward, because as Councillor Aaron said, it's for the individual governing bodies to determine how they use and allocate the resources available to them, and we can't dictate that they do something different, notwithstanding we could obviously offer something useful. So I suppose, I guess my point would therefore be, what is the merit and purpose of why you're seeking the report, for us to therefore consider that on bringing it, that we angle it in the right way, as it were.
Can I come back on
Sorry,
that, Chair?
Councillor Paul, I'm going to let Councillor Anne come in first because she's the mover of the report.
Yeah. Well, financial performance of schools is certainly under the remit of overview and scrutiny committees, and why wouldn't it? And too often I think we seem to be timid at actually lifting the blanket and actually looking at the whole sort of operation. Who knows what sort of is underneath the figures, because we haven't a clue what the figures are and therefore what the opportunity is. So I don't want to deny and confuse that there isn't a fabulous piece of improvement across the other services. I would just like to understand what the picture is in this area in relation to schools. And then thereafter, a debate on that, we can actually look at, well, is there something we can do about it? Because they're struggling.
Councillor, I absolutely get that. And in that context, I've no issue at all with us looking to see what we can bring. And as you say, I mean, obviously, if we believe that there are processes and systems that we can roll out to schools that would be of benefit to them, then absolutely, why would we not seek to be doing that? So not an issue. And as I say, I'm happy in that context, as you say, to bring something which then I guess fuels a debate about well, what do you do with it, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thanks, Amanda, and thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Amanda. Go ahead, Paul.
Chair, can I just build on that? Because my best understanding, and I went through this process because I'm on the finance subcommittee of one of the governing bodies I'm on, is that the local authority operates the scheme for agency workers at school, because we pay into a sort of insurance fund for that. And this year, for the school I was on, we had an item on the agenda where we had to increase that amount within year because we'd used the scheme more than anticipated. So I think there is a scheme which the finance section of education do run for schools, and I don't know whether it's efficient and effective or not, but I do know that in year, if you overuse it, you have to make an additional payment within year, like a sort of insurance scheme.
Thank you. Okay, we've had a proposal and that's been seconded, which is the item to 8.1 with the recommendation from Anne McCaffrey. Do we ready to move to the vote? Yeah, can we move to the vote, please? Has everybody voted? Okay, can we now close the vote, please? And that is carried. Thank you. And that concludes the meeting. So thank you, everyone. I appreciate we have run over. I hope it hasn't caused too much inconvenience to officers, but thank you for your patience and thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thanks, Chair, and congratulations.